Welcome. We are going to get started on time today. So welcome to Email Marketing, How Tiny Factors Make Huge Differences. And as you're all used to, we have the forward-looking statement. So Salesforce is a publicly traded company. Please make software decisions based on what is currently available. So my name is Bradley Robinson. I'm actually the Director of Email Marketing for Salesforce. And I've been doing email marketing and using Marketing Cloud since about 2009. So our team is actually part of corporate marketing at Salesforce, and we are the ones responsible for sending all of the email for events. So it's Dreamforce and the World Tours. We send email for the admin alerts, which are those legally required emails you get about your systems. And then we also do all of the demand generation email for the campaigns team as part of corporate marketing.
Hey everyone, I'm Lydia Yang. I'm an email marketing manager on Bradley's team here at Salesforce. I'm super excited to talk to you guys about a lot of cool things that we've done in the past year.
So, quick by hand, who is a current Marketing Cloud user? A lot of the room, excellent. All right, and how many are email marketing folks, like dedicated to marketing? Great. So today we're actually going to take you through a lot of things and show you tools that we use at Salesforce. We're going to really pull that curtain back and show you what we're doing. So we'll go through our email design evolution. We'll show you actually how we tested our way into the design that we got today. We're going to talk about A/B testing, and then Lydia will take you through a bunch of case studies to show you some really crazy improvement that we got. We'll talk about the retention strategy and how we actually found a bunch of missing pipe or lost pipe, and then we'll do one-to-one marketing on the back end, which is dynamic content using Marketing Cloud. So email design. So when I came to Salesforce, we actually kind of paused and we said, let's have a look at what are we actually sending out. And so these are the types of emails that were being sent out for webinars. You know, they were pretty static, lots of text, very text heavy. Social was interesting, but you'll notice like social icons probably placed below the headlines, not the best place. So what we did is we sat with our designer, Ricardo, and we actually stepped back and said, well, what can we do to it? So we actually read the content, novel idea, but we discovered that they were bearing the lead because webinar registrations is all about the speaker. It's all about the experience of those people we're inviting to be our partners, and look what happened. We pulled in some company logos, we pulled in some photos, and it really brought it to life. We then pulled in some color and we brought in that date up in the corner, that date page, and we actually got a huge increase in webinar registrations for this. So email drives 60% of all Salesforce webinar registrations. And so we actually tested through, and this is where we actually have landed as part of that webinar design. So once we had done that, we actually pulled that billboard forward into some of the other demand generation emails that we did. So it looks almost not quite consumer. We're pulling some of that consumer fun into these B2B emails because we are a B2B marketing company. So we have bigger billboards, large color blocks, and actually we got a better response as we moved through into this design. But we were just starting that journey of design. So what we did is we continued to test new designs just to see what people would respond to. So these emails were designed with a really single primary offer. So you can see that with the Apple Watch. We've got this beautiful billboard with the Apple Watch highlighting it. But then we started to pull in a secondary offer. Because remember, Salesforce, we have so many products that it behooves us not to promote more than one product in an email. So we started putting in secondary offers here. We ended up with a secondary offer kind of template, as you can see as we go through these designs. From there, we looked at animated GIFs. So in this particular example, our Wave product is perfect for an animated GIF. You can really see what that interface is doing and like, what am I going to see when I click through that email? So we brought in bigger billboards yet again. We brought in bigger imagery, but we did it with purpose. And so if any of you have an announcement like this, a product like this, absolutely make an animated GIF and test it out. SurveyMonkey does a fantastic job of this. Every time they have a new feature or function in SurveyMonkey, the email you get is an actual animated GIF that shows you how to navigate to that new function. So definitely check them out. Virgin America also does some kind of fun animated GIFs as well. So from there, we also send all the newsletters out. So my team sends out newsletters for the developer team. We send them out for the Admin Digest. All the newsletters we looked at, they looked like they were coming from a different company. And so we went back to the drawing board again with a creative framework that would work across all of those teams, but let them take some of their own creative gloss, as you can see with the different colors, so that we shared the code framework to make it easier for our team, but then those people could still make it look like it applied to their audiences. Developers, a little bit more fun. The admin digest, you can see kind of the blue blocks coming through there. So these are the framework that we actually landed on that we're still using today, and we'll actually take you through some more of the testing. So we are in the process of rolling out a new dynamic engine at Salesforce that we'll talk about. This is the design that we ended up testing too. So we've got beautiful billboards. We're pulling in some lifestyle graphics there. We've got our secondary offer, as we talked about. And then we're doing an image swap to a circular image on the responsive design. But what we wanted to do is, when rolling out a new email design, we didn't want every single email to look exactly the same, because Salesforce sends a lot of email. So what we did is we took that code framework, we made a slight change to that billboard so that we now had two functional templates using a very similar code base. And the reason we did this is that when we went back to the graphics team and the marketing team, the only difference in terms of new creative is that one billboard, but it enables us to have two totally different email designs that we can go to market with. So we tried to make this as easy as possible for everyone to help us get those new creative assets. So here is the actual Salesforce email spec guideline. We're going to post this this presentation, so you will have access to it, but this is the actual document we circulate inside the company. So our recommendations for what we have found, we're looking at 50 characters for a headline is what we've been telling our folks, and then we've got a 15-character CTA. And with CTAs, remember, some of the copy we get is, it'll say things like, get the ebook, and we usually drop all the articles, because we need that sense of urgency for that CTA. So get ebook, register now. From the primary offer for that body copy, what we have found is 500 characters is this kind of sweet spot for us, with one sentence is one paragraph. And what that does is that creates that natural white space down the page, so it breaks it up. And then we recommend our folks to submit things with bullets, because that's easier to eye track. For the secondary offer, we've got the same 50-character limit on the headline, but then we've got literally 165 characters. So it's one sentence for that secondary offer. And then CTA, same thing, 15 characters. And look what happened. We published this email guide, we published it out to all of the marketing teams, and we're getting these beautiful emails back from different departments. They're performing really well, and they've just taken what we've done, and it took on a life of its own. So if you can make it easy in the beginning, pick a standard code base, pick a template, and then actually draft those guidelines and copy recommendations, you'll get back some fantastic content. So sender name. So this session's about small changes. So one of the other tests we did is we looked at sender name. Now, sender name is emotional. It's the first thing that shows up in that email box, if you remember. So everything going out of the building at Salesforce was under the sender name Salesforce. So we did a test, and we said, what if we did a test under Salesforce Service Cloud to kind of tip the hat as to what type of content that might be related if they opened that. And look what happened. I got a 3% open rate, and I didn't do any work yet, just by changing that sender name. So we did it again. So we said Salesforce versus Salesforce App Cloud. 3% increase again. So right now, our standard, every time that we send out an email, we change the sender name and we link it to the subject line and the content from the first offer. So this actually tested proof as we went through. Subject line, we'll talk briefly about subject lines. So as we talked about the length, length for us is 50 to 75 characters. There's a lot of blog posts that you can find about this. From a content standpoint, use action verbs. Convey a sense of urgency. And a lot of the time when you work with copywriters who write long-form content, they're not giving you that urgency you need because you've got to get them to open that email. And the teaser subject line actually works really well. So last year for Dreamforce, this was the actual test we did. We sent it out with Dreamforce registrations live. Then we sent it again and it said, it's begun. That sense of mystery, we got a 15% open rate just by doing that. The second test, it said, save $600. The minute we put in, jump on $600, look at the difference in this open rate, just by one word. So really test it out, and we'll talk about some A/B testing as we go.
So I'm going to jump in and just talk about pre-headers for a little bit, and I'm sure everybody in this room knows what a pre-header is, but internally we still find that we have to educate a little bit on what pre-headers are. So these are the actual slides that we show to our peers to describe a pre-header. So What is it? It's that text that's shown after the subject line in the preview of your email. A couple points that we like to emphasize. First of all, is that, it's super important. It's literally your last chance in the inbox to get your readers to open the email. The content, it should be written in full sentences, and you want to avoid repetition of the body copy. And lastly, but not least, we like to make sure that we recommend that the pre-header, the length of it is as close to 120 characters as possible. So the reason for this is because, say you're in your desktop, you see about 72 characters. However, when you get to your iPhone 5, you get a little bit more real estate. You have 90 characters. Now on these bigger phones that we all have now, the iPhone 6 Plus, the iPhone 7 Plus, you have up to 120 characters. So super important that you write up to that length. These are good examples. You see it fills up the 3 lines, it tells you what's in the email, they're full sentences, it's legible. When you don't adhere to that, you might start to pull in copy from the rest of your body, or maybe a link, something that doesn't really make sense without any context. Bradley?
Great. So A/B testing. I know this is an intermediate session, but we're going to quickly kind of level set on some A/B testing because you would be really surprised at how many people, even at Salesforce, don't understand this completely. So always choose one hypothesis to test. So in this particular example, we've got Creative A and Creative B that we're going to test. Now, Marketing Cloud has a phenomenal A/B testing engine. So what you do is you can load both of those creatives into the Marketing Cloud A/B testing engine. You load in your list, and then you tell Marketing Cloud what is the winning criteria. Is it click rate? Is it open rate? And then you say, go ahead and do the test. So what Marketing Cloud does, it takes 20% of your send list, and it sends 10% to Creative A and 10% to Creative B. And then the clock starts. And it's a timer you set, which could be between 24 and 36 hours. That's what we find is really good. At the end of that time, Marketing Cloud looks for that winning criteria. Was it the open rate or was it the click-through rate? And it sends the winning creative to the remainder of your list. Now the trick with this is we are all under pressure to get an email out by Friday. In order for us to do this, we always have to go back to our clients and explain we need more time because we'll get you a better engagement rate. And that's really kind of an open communication. You can explain A/B testing and why you need that time, but you actually get much better results. So this actually happened to us not that long ago. We had a client, because we are an internal service bureau at Salesforce. We had someone come to us and say, I don't have time to do all this testing. I want to do one send with subject line A and Creative A, and I want to do another send with subject line B and Creative B. And we had to explain, we can't even know what the results would be had we had a winner. So really just make sure that you're always picking one hypothesis. With our team, because we have many team members, we have what's a central hypothesis board. So basically, we have a place that any team member can go and say, this is what I would like to test my theory. So they put it on the board. Any other team member can come by and before they're doing a send and see what's available, what's up on the board in terms of people that need data. So this might be a sender name example. Someone would come, do the sender name test, the send goes out, they bring back the data, they put it back on the hypothesis board, and the hypothesis owner is now getting that data to actually get something statistically significant. So it's kind of an easy way to do distributed testing. And then just test, keep testing, because the results are not always what you think.
Cool. So here at Salesforce, we send a lot of webinar invite emails. A lot. So what better way than to do some testing than with a template that we actually have a huge audience with. So our first test that we wanted to work on was the actual the color of the CTA button. So you guys have seen this layout. This is kind of the new layout that we came up with, but we wanted to test just that top button up there. So originally we had a white button with blue text. Our hypothesis was that if we changed the color of the button to something that stood out more, we'd get more clicks. So we tested it. In the first test, we actually got 89% more clicks on the orange button. But as Bradley mentioned, you have to make sure it's statistically significant, so you keep testing. On the second test here, the white button won, of course, right? So what to do? Just keep testing, right? So third test, about even, 7% more clicks on the orange. Nothing really significant there. This test, we actually got 200 more clicks on that orange button. And so all in all, we took all our test results, we aggregated it, the orange button ended up being the winner. So moral of the story, you might not see the results that you want, first time, second time, keep testing and aggregate your results. So since we do send a lot of webinar emails here, we kind of came up with a cool cadence that we use in order to get more of these webinar invites out to people without making it seem like we're sending the same promotion over and over and hitting the same people with the same thing. So what we do is 2 weeks prior to the webinar, we actually send out an email where the primary focus is that webinar. Then a week later, we will actually send to that same audience, we send something else as a primary offer, maybe like an ebook or a report, white paper. But we still have that webinar in there. It's the secondary offer there. Then 2 days prior to the actual webinar, we'll send another email, and then this is a great chance to use some urgency messaging like last chance to sign up, something like that. So again, the webinar becomes primary again, and then you have either a new ebook or the one that you used before. So just a cool way to get a lot of touches for a certain offer. So has anyone here been to a World Tour, Salesforce World Tour? Cool. So for those of you who don't know or might not know what it is, it's a Salesforce event. It's kind of just like a smaller version of Dreamforce. And they're held across different cities across the world. So it's a cool event. There's demos, there's keynotes, and our team actually handles the follow-ups for these events. So we send an email that looks like this, or we used to rather. So not the most exciting, very text heavy. So our first attempt at cleaning this up led us here. Try to give it a little bit more white space, make it easier to read. But we really didn't see much increase in engagement there. So we actually stepped back and looked at what the email was composed of. So there's 3 offers. And we thought, what could we do to really increase engagement here? So our designer came up with something like this on the right here. So we linked an image to each one of the offers. And our hypothesis was that we'd get more engagement because there's a shiny picture to go with each offer. So we took an actual audience from one of the world tours and tested these 2 layouts on them. And we were totally wrong, right? Look at the text. So the text version had a CTOR of 7.8%, and our graphical version only had a 5.44. So may not always be right, but instead of kind of just going with the text, we actually went back and we asked our stakeholders for feedback. So this is what a few people had to say. We heard that the CTA, it wasn't really clear which one went with which text or went with which image. We got feedback that the headlines were hard to read, and some people couldn't read the headlines. So our designer came up with something like this. We made sure that the offer headlines were actually live text. So super important, if someone's viewing your email with the images turned off, they can still get the whole thing, right? They still see what you're trying to sell to them. We also use a background color to try to link together the CTA with the copy with the image. So of course we tested it. Pretty good, right? So we got an increase in the CTR from 2.99 to 4.58. We doubled our CTOR just about from 6% to 12%. So that was great. Back to statistical significance though, you need to make sure you have enough, a big enough audience to really claim that this is your winner. Our audience wasn't big enough, so we had to keep testing. Meanwhile, we got more feedback, of course. So the images are too tall. Yeah, I can see that, and that made the email too long, right? So it was kind of you had to scroll through it. But we also got an additional request. They wanted to insert more offers. So kind of impossible here, right? How are we gonna make the email shorter, but we needed to insert more content. So our designer did come up with something. This is what it looks like, but I'll break down kind of how he did it. The text now is stacked side by side with the offer image. So it really shortens that. How did we insert that additional offer? So we actually started to take advantage of dynamic content. So we would only insert this fourth offer if we knew information about this person, that they were part of a particular industry. So financial services or healthcare or something. So we would take that data and you'd only see that offer if it was applicable to you. So what do you guys think? Pretty amazing, right? Okay, so let's see. Open rate went from 36 to 44%. The CTR went from 4 to 8%, and the CTOR, my favorite part, 12% to 18%. Pretty amazing stuff. So if we step back, you can really see the progression. I mean, we more than doubled CTR and CTOR, and that was through months of testing and different revisions, getting feedback. So we're super excited about that. And it's cool because we took this design and all our learnings and we start to apply it to future emails. So on the right is actually a Dreamforce follow-up email that you guys will be receiving next week and the week after. And I mean, you can see the similarity, right? So really cool, really fun stuff, A/B testing and just doing multiple versions and getting that feedback was a huge learning for us. Bradley.
Great, so we're going to change gears a little bit and talk about the email retention program at Salesforce. So to do that, I have to explain how our emailable universe works for our entire email database. So in the database, we have the emailable folks who are healthy and emailable and they're engaged. And then we've got that group of people, contacts with missing data, which we all have. But then also at Salesforce, we have a company policy, whereas if an email is not open for 12 months, it gets moved into unmailable and we are never ever allowed to touch it again. So this is a problem because that means my email database is really constantly changing, not just through unsubscribes. So as we looked at this, we said we've got to do a database analysis and figure out how we can stem this bleeding. So we looked at the emailable universe and we actually looked at those contacts and said, what is happening? So we had these folks that came through a landing page, they filled out the form, we have their industry, we have their job title, they are falling into the segments that marketing is coming and requesting, as represented by that pie chart. These people are getting email and they're engaged with us because they're receiving email. What we discovered though is there was a whole group of people that came in to the database and might be missing one piece of information, which means they're not getting put into a segment, which means that they're going to move into that contacts with missing data over time. They were interested at the beginning, but we haven't been emailing them because we're not segmenting them because we don't have enough data. And then that email that was valid at the beginning is automatically being moved 12 months later to expired. And that could have been a very valid email contact, but just because we didn't have enough information, we weren't emailing them. So that was the problem. That was the gap that we discovered. So this whole grouping of contacts with missing data, we said we've got to figure out what's going on and what can we do. So we broke them into two groups. We said we've got kind of the at-risk people, which we classified as 6 months to 12. So, because remember those are the people that are expiring. So we figured let's focus here first and try and just stem this bleeding to stop these emails from expiring out. So we chose to do a re-engagement nurture. So it'd be 1 email a month. And this is actually where you can kind of change your brand voice, because we actually went kind of campy. We were like, hey, we've missed you, and how can we help? And all we wanted to do is get those people to open the email and actually engage with us, and even better, give us more information so we can get them into the right segments. So you can see we did some surveys, which is, tell us what kind of content you'd like to see from us. And then we straight up did an Apple Watch contest, because remember, to save them, they just have to open. And everybody fills out the form for an Apple Watch, so we actually saved 11% of our email addresses through this method. And the size of our database, 11% is a really significant number, just by doing 1 email a month to people that we didn't know anything about. From there, we went to the front end of this. So these are people that might be 30 days to 6 months. They're kind of brand engaged, because they actually more recently engaged with us. So what can we do to them? So the difference here is we have absolutely no idea what they want to know about, really. So we decided to do this newsletter where we took multiple products and just kind of threw everything at them to see what we could do. So we chose some ebooks, we chose some webinars, and we did a mixture of gated and ungated content, because remember, these are unengaged users. The first thing you do if you throw them into an ebook and they have to give you all of their information, they're going to abandon. And so we really do recommend for these types of emails using ungated content, like to blog posts or to other things, even though that's not a normal email best practice where we always want to capture all their data. But you want to just keep them engaged. So we sent this out one time a month. One thing we did learn, though, is we thought webinars would be really popular. So let's make webinars either the first article or maybe the second article. Yeah, people don't like that. They don't want to give you all their information. So we ended up moving it down the page after many months of learning. So you can see that. So the open rate looked good. It was 25%. So then we said, well, what can we do to make this more personalized? So we stepped back and we said, well, let's make the first offer and the second offer dynamic using Marketing Cloud's dynamic content if we had just a little bit of information about them. So using AmpScript, which is the programming language of Marketing Cloud, it's very close to JavaScript, so your HTML developers will be comfortable using it. We actually said, let's make 4 offers, one for IT, sales, customer service, and marketing. And if we had an inkling of information about these people, let's change that first offer based on what their profile says. We did the same thing with the second offer. We did ungated content with some blog posts, again, related to those same audiences. And then the one thing, remember, that we did is we tie that subject line and the sender name to that persona. So look at what happened to the open rate. It went to 40%. So, and these are totally unengaged people. These people, like, we had no idea what they wanted. The main reason I tell you this story is that we found millions and millions and millions of dollars of revenue we had no idea we were losing. Like, we honestly, this was the discovery as we did this. So highly recommend it if you guys can do this. The takeaways to do something like this is find time to step back and do an email database analysis, like just to see what's going on with your users. And then remember they're unengaged. So content is king in this. So actually you can, and even better, they're also brand aware. So use them as an A/B testing group, because you can put stuff in front of some unengaged users to see how they respond before you put it into the full market with the brand aware users. All right, last piece. So dynamic email content. So this is all about getting the right content to the right recipient at the right time. So previously, as I explained, we are an internal service bureau for Salesforce. And so we work very closely with the demand generation team. And so up to now, we had each product team come to us and say, I'd like to send an email. So can you please cut a list? And we say, give us 2 offers, and out we go. Salesforce has another policy where we don't touch one email more than twice a month. So they get 2 sends a month. So that means that if I do an email send, that email doesn't become valid again for 2 more weeks. So the Sales Cloud people came to us and they said, let's do a list. So we did the email. The next day, the Service Cloud people that have a very similar profile to Sales Cloud asked us to do an email, and we kept bumping into each other. There was no available list for them. And this was happening over and over and over. And so what we found is, like, this isn't sustainable. So we've got to really figure out what to do. And our users on the other end, they're getting these messages siloed. We're not actually giving that product affinity, which Salesforce ecosystem, where we're actually presenting multiple products to them across the ecosystem. So here's kind of where we went. We said, what if we could create a dynamic email engine that sits in front of our nurtures? We already had great nurture set up. We've got the landing pages in place. But let's really figure out how to get the right person into that right nurture to get them educated. So we decided to build something that had 3 components. We were going to build a persona engine, which would look at every email and assign them a persona. We were going to build a content database so that we could put every single offer into a database for tagging. And then we had to build a content rules engine, which is about the scoring of the content and making sure that content isn't duplicated or that we're selling them things that they already own. So I'm going to take you through, these are the actual slides we used internally as we presented. So the personas. So the first piece is our product persona. So we took the entire email database and we chopped it into 3 sections based on company size, because in some cases, you approach different companies with different messages. So we broke it into small business, which is from 1 employee to about 100. We did medium-sized business, which is 101 to 3,500. And then we had enterprise, which is 3,500 employees and above. So within each of those company segments, we decided there was going to be 4 personas. So sales persona, service persona, which is customer service, IT, and marketing. And then these are the criteria that we decided to go for. So now we're really beginning to use the advanced placement of Marketing Cloud. So we're looking out at the product interest. How are we going to find product interest? Well, we're looking back into Sales Cloud. We're looking at leads and opportunities to see what is their current product interest that they might be looking at. So we can make whatever content we send them relevant to what they're doing right now. So we go and we pull a product interest. And if we can't easily identify one, then we start going down some of these other criteria. We look if they're a customer or a prospect, because you kind of approach those audiences slightly different. We see what products they own. A, so we don't market them something they already have, but B, so we can look at affiliated products they should be using that they could easily add to their ecosystem. We have a data analytics team that assigns a propensity to buy score to every customer. So I can go in and see that one customer has a very high propensity score for Analytics Cloud, so that can influence the kind of content we put them in. And then if we really don't know their product interest, we look at the other things: job function, job level, and job title. So the engine wakes up in the morning, and it actually takes the entire database and it says, who is emailable today? It runs this criteria against them, and it assigns them to one of our 4 personas. So now I've got my emailable list. Anyone we can't identify automatically goes back to the retention program until they give us more information so we can get them into the right segment. For those of you that are interested, this is the actual flowchart. So, and this will be in there. So it actually it goes through, the email enters the system. We look at if you're a sales-only buyer. We look at your propensity to buy scores. We look at a whole bunch of things, and then we actually assign you your persona. From there, we had to come up with our content strategy. So we relied on the template that we showed you earlier. That template was actually designed for this project because we wanted to get the best results. And we said, let's go out with a 3-offer model. So offer number 1 is always going to align to your primary product interest with the persona engine has decided. So that way we're not going to show you products that you own, and it also is smart enough where we can actually insert a product as an upsell. So if we know that you have a product and there's an affiliated product that you're supposed to have, we can wire that in there. So that first one always aligns to that primary product interest. The subject line and the sender name are all linked to that first offer. So that drives kind of that top offer. Second offer is an affiliated product. So every time we put content into the content database, we tag it, and we actually say, what products is this affiliated with, so that we know what the relationship is in terms of when to show it. If offer number 1 is Sales Cloud, offer number 2 could be Salesforce IQ Inbox, because those are affiliated and they live happily together. Third offer was for customers only. So we said, if you are a customer, we're going to present you a professional services offer. So just to actually get more services experience out there. So then we came up with our tagging taxonomy. So these are our actual work documents, by the way. But so every piece of content that goes into the content database, we tag. So it's tagged by company size, it's tagged by language, it's tagged by industry. We say what content type is it, and we ask for affiliated products as well. So that all goes into our content database. So what we built in Marketing Cloud, with the help of our friends from Marketing Cloud Professional Services, who are amazing partners in this, we actually built the content database in a data extension. So in Marketing Cloud, a data extension is nothing more than an empty container that you then upload your content into, and that becomes the content database available to the email at the time of send. So the easiest way to think about it is if you've managed any of your content in a Google Sheet or in Excel, you would upload that entire data model into the data extension, and that is the de facto database for Marketing Cloud as it's doing the email sends going out the door. So that's how you manage the content to make it dynamic. The other things that we did here, as you can see, we actually have the subject line in here, we've got the pre-header in here, the body copy is in here, but we actually put the break marks and very limited amounts of HTML in there because we really want to control that white space to make those emails easy on the eye as they go out. It's got all of the URLs. So we're not actually coding here. What we're doing is we're taking the content database and we're applying it to the HTML template, which is all variables using AmpScript. So we have the persona engine that wakes up in the morning, cuts the entire database. We've got the content engine that's now been filled with content from all the marketing folks. And then we also had to build a content performance system. So this was our thinking of, well, we've got to make sure that one email address doesn't get the same offers like 2 times in a row. What happens if one piece of content is scoring really, really well and it's overperforming, that should stay in market longer than content that's not performing. So we actually built a rules engine in Marketing Cloud that is intelligent so that as we launch this system, it monitors every piece of content. Content with higher engagement gets sent more frequently. Content that's brand new within the last 30 days automatically goes out the door so we can start to build up that content score. And then it will automatically time out content as well because it was important to our product people for them to do announcements. They could put the content in ahead of time, set a start date, set an end date. On the start date, it immediately goes into market, and on the end date, it expires out. This is how we do webinars. That's how we actually manage our webinar system now. So what happened? So we turned this on 11 days ago. So these are very early numbers. So what we found, though, is we had never, ever before been able to get data at a persona level. This was new to us. So we're seeing that our sales buyers, our sales persona from an enterprise buyer, we have a 10% increase in open rates. A sales-only buyer, which is more or less the sales operations folks, we had an increase in the large companies by 6% and in small business in 5%. And then from the service, from my customer service folks, my open rates actually went down. However, my click-to-open rate, it went up, and that was a high click-to-open rate before it started. So although I've got people that are opening less, I've got a very, very engaged audience there. So this is probably some subject line work that we'll look at it doing a fix for that. So from there, we actually are able to take the data, and we're actually moving it into Wave. So now, for my clients, we can give them a place they can go see how their offers are performing. And so you can see we can cut it by persona, we can cut it by click-through, and then for the first time ever, we took the entire content database, we attached each offer to a specific campaign in Salesforce so that we know exactly how much revenue every specific offer derived and if that offer was in position 1 or position 2. We've never been able to do this before, so this is all new for everyone. So this is how we're actually going to roll this out at Salesforce for our internal clients. So takeaways. So I've described an enterprise level system, but that doesn't prevent you from just looking at your database as you're doing your retention analysis to see who are your audiences that are in there, because even basic segmentation from, as we found, enterprise to small business, you can actually give them slightly different content and get an increase in engagement. Content was probably our biggest challenge, to be honest with you, so check to see if there's content available, and if not, then actually work with your product folks and your web folks to get some content. But what we found, like when we talked about the email design guide, making the process easy and making the design guide very clear is how we were successful. We published a content guideline along with that email spec guide that you saw, and we got content from every single business unit at Salesforce. So just make it easy and make it fun. So with that, we're at the end of the session, but before we go anywhere, please take out your phones, rate the session. We would love to get feedback on the content for you. And at that, Lydia and I will be up here for a few minutes afterwards, so thank you very much. All right.